Hey, welcome back to the channel today. I really appreciate you being here. In this video, I'm going to show you how I rebuilt the cowl on this old rusty Pinto. This is just going to be one of many videos where I rework parts of this Pinto to get it back on the road. It was nothing but a rusty bucket. This is the first part that I've actually completed. I hope that you'll consider subscribing and liking the channel and follow along as I make these videos as I rework this Pinto. Now, exactly what is the cowl, you might ask? Well, on the Pinto, and probably for most other cars as well, it's the part of the body that's between the hood and the windshield. On the Pinto, it's made out of two pieces, the upper cowl and the lower cowl. Now, those two pieces are welded together and they're welded into the body. Its design allows for fresh air to be brought into the car for the occupants, but it also keeps water out. So this part right here is the cowl. In my previous video, you saw where I removed that thing. This was definitely part of the rat's nest. The whole lower half of that cowl was nothing but rust and fell apart. So I'm checking the fit of everything, make sure it's back where it's supposed to be. And then I'm going to try to go ahead and build the firewall right here back up to the top portion of the cowl. So I've got to fabricate a piece of metal that'll fit that contour right there. Okay, this is the bottom side of the cowl. You can see all the rusted stuff on this edge. I'm going to try to clean that off and get back down to just this base piece of metal there. I had to go in and drill out all the spot welds to get all that stuff off of there. It turned out pretty good and the part's not in bad shape. First thing I'm trying to do is make a template. I've got a piece of cardboard there. I'm going to push it back against that cowl and I'm going to mark it with a Sharpie. And hopefully that'll give me the curve. Now I'll have to add a return lip back this away to that. So let's see how it goes. Well, here's the finished part, my filler piece here. So I'm going to get this in place. I'm going to get the firewall cleaned up and try to get this thing tack welded in here in a little bit. But this is the way it turned out. It's not too bad. I've got it ready to weld in now. I've got it fitting pretty good. I'll fix the top arch after I get the bottom welded in there. And I've got this rig. I made me an adjustable aluminum pole here so I can snug that up with an airbag, a pump-up airbag. So I can snug that up, push that metal back tight against the back metal, and spot weld this thing. There it is, mostly welded. I've got it welded on the inside and outside in spots. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the top of the cowl here and trim this off right here where it matches the top cowl. Those little tabs I created, I'll cut those off now. Well, there it is. I put some primer on it just to keep it from rusting any further. And it's a pretty good fit to the top of the cowl there. There's a little flex in it here and there, so I think I can make it fit just fine. That'll give me something to build the lower cowl to, from there up to the bottom of the windshield. I went ahead and temporarily mounted in the heater box. That allowed me to determine where the air intake was supposed to be because all that fell apart when I removed the cowl. I'm going to keep as much of this as possible and build back to that. It's actually not that bad up in this area here. It's surface rust. Okay, I've still got a lot of cleaning up to do, which I'm going to do, but I wanted to start getting an idea of how I was going to repair this. So I've made my cardboard template here, and I know that this has to stick out 9 inches because I made a note of it. And then this just folds down into here like this. I've got to get it back to its line there. So that's basically what I'm going to cut out of metal. I know it's got a curve along this line. This is going to have some pressure on it because it's sitting on top of that foam seal of the air box. I also have the back side marked where that hole is. I have to add a 1/4 inch lip on this side sticking up, and I'm going to turn a 3/4 inch lip down on this side. Okay, it's a little primitive, I know, but I think it works. And I'm looking at the part on the car and kind of guessing on where this is, how much this needs to be bent. We're going to start with something like that. Here the part is laying in place. It's not too bad, but I was wrong when I said I was going to have a 3/4 lip turned down on this side. That contour has to be cut to match the top of the cowl. Now on the biggest part, I had originally thought I'd just make this thing out of pieces, but I'm a pretty impatient man. I decided to make it out of one piece. So I got a big piece of cardboard. I cut it out pretty close, as you can see. There's a bunch of bends in it. So I'm going to use that to make a piece of metal. Okay, here's the metal piece laying into place. I've got it reasonably close, I think, but I made some progress today. I've still got a long ways to go, but that piece is going to turn out okay. It is what it is. There's no way in the world of getting rid of all the rust on this thing short of driving it off into a vat of acid somewhere. Making this part without really even knowing what the original part looked like is a bit of a challenge. It's going to be more for function than looks. The only thing of concern is the wiper motor. It mounts to the back side of that area right there, but I checked it and I think it'll work okay. All right, this morning I'm working on the driver's side wiper mount. This area is probably some of the worst, and I'm going to have to just rebuild that the best way I can. But I removed the mounting plate and there's rust on the back side of it, so I'll get all that cleaned up and I'll put some primer on there. Here's something that might be helpful to some people. I don't know if this is the normal way to do it or not, but I'm just using cardboard for the smaller part out of like a cereal box or something. And to hold it in place, I've got these magnets that I took out of some hoverboard wheels. They're super strong and hold the pattern into place pretty good. Okay, I've got a new patch piece in right here. This one was a booger bear. It's this piece right there. I think you can see it. I've just got everything spot welded right now. I'll go back and fill those welds all in. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is cut that piece that's going to come out over the top of this one right here just a little bit. Okay, I've worked all day long on 3 pieces of metal here. There's 2 around that wiper arm right there, and there's a small patch over there. I still have to add some more patches and then get everything welded up. Before I can complete the cowl, I'm going to have to go back and patch all these pieces that made up to the cowl. And the reason I want to do that before I completely finish this is because I'm going to be spot welding to this thing here, to the cowl. And then of course I don't want to burn up any kind of paint or anything I have on the inside of the cowl at that point. So I'm going to do all these wheel welds on both sides first, and then I'll finish the cowl. Well, there it is, welded into place. Turned out okay. It's not exactly like the original was. Here's what it was originally. I have some seam sealer coming, should be here Monday. I'll put over all the seams and seal this out, make it watertight. But it didn't come out too bad. Still got to fill in some places and things, but at least I'm making some headway. I got to build this part right here now, and I don't have a lot to work with. This basically fell off of the other cowl. So I was able to determine though that it's supposed to be higher on this side than this side. This is like 2 1/4, this is 1 1/2 inches. This part has kind of a strange cut across the top of it here to make it tilted. Here it is so far. It's taller on one side than the other, just like the other one. Well, that's the end of another day here. I got that little, what I'm calling a heating duct worked out there. It looks pretty decent. It's not exactly like the other one, but I think it'll serve the purpose. I've got this lower part done here, at least the outer section. I still have to go in and rework some of the wheel well on each side. What my goal was, though, is to anything that contacts the bottom of this, I want to go ahead and get that welding done so that once I seal this box up, I wouldn't be coming back welding and burning off any kind of finish I have on the inside of the cowl box. Okay, this bracket right here, I had to imagine what it looked like. This is the wiper motor bracket that I just winged, to be honest with you. I believe the original one attached to the bottom of the original cowl. Every bit of that was gone. The motor just basically hanging. So what I did is I just kind of held this motor up there until I got it to where I thought it was going to be, and then I built a bracket to mount it to. I'll have to do some standoffs and what have you on here, but it's close enough for now. At least I've got something there to mount the motor to. Last night, before I did all this sanding, I went ahead and sprayed some of this stuff right here on here. And I didn't really like the way it did. It pulled up in a lot of places. So what I did this morning is I came back and I've sanded all that off. Of course, I can't get it out of the little pits. That may be one place where this is beneficial. These pits, some of them are pretty deep. So I'm sanding down as much as I can, and I'm thinking it's gonna be okay. So anyway, I'm getting this thing cleaned up. I'm gonna get it primed here in just a little bit, and we'll be ready to place it onto the bottom half of the cowl. For all the edges, it's going to be welded, like this edge here, and along this edge here, and this edge. I'm using this weld-through primer. Okay, I put tape along these edges. I'm out of the weld-through primer, so I don't want to get my regular primer on there until I get this thing welded into place. And then I'll come back and coat it all again. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get a coat on all this before it has a chance to rust. Now this is the stuff I'm going to use to paint it with, this truck bed liner. I think that there was a coating of some sort on there from the factory, but I couldn't tell what it was. So this is the most durable thing I could think of. I have everything taped off. I don't want this on the weld seams where I'm going to be welding it. So I've got all those areas taped off. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a hefty bead of this sealant all around these contact surfaces here. And then I'm going to delicately pick this thing up and place it on the bottom half of the cowl. I probably should have known better, but when I read the instructions, I saw weld-through instructions on the seam sealant. That meant to me that I could put it on there and weld right through it, much like the weld-through primer that I have. But that's not the case at all. I'll put this on there. Naturally, it squished out of some of the locations I wanted to weld, and all it did was flame up and smoke and mess up my welds. I wasn't able to weld into all those holes that I had, which is unfortunate. So what I had to do is just weld it where I could weld it. You can see here I kind of bubble gummed it along the edge there as several places. It's not pretty, but I'm fixing to cover it up with the sealant anyways. Well, there it is with the seam sealant on it. That'll smooth out some as it sets. It's not the best looking thing in the world, but I think there's something in that little trough even from the factory, and I suspect it is some sort of seam sealant. Well, that's going to do it for this video. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch it. I hope that was helpful to you in some way. I know that this turned out to be quite a project. I have several days in this thing here. I think it's probably the worst part of this whole Pinto deal. I hope that you'll consider subscribing and liking the channel and follow along as I continue to work on this Pinto. Among some other things, I do other things besides just work on this Pinto. So I hope that you'll subscribe, like, and click that bell icon so that you'll be made aware of future videos that I post. Thanks again. May God bless you and have a great day.